Today on Navigating Retirement, we're going to talk about new regulations in the investment industry called the Client Relationship Model, which gives customers and clients a better understanding, guys, of what kind of things they're invested in, how much they've made over the last few years, and especially the fees they're paying. David, if you want to start a little bit and tell us a little bit about the history of the CRM.
Sure. Well, this is changing regulations that have been happening over probably the past 10 years or so. And it originated with CRM1, and CRM1 dealt with the suitability of client investment needs and risks, and then CRM2, the first phase came in 2013, and we're seeing things phased in 3 different phases. I actually think it's a really good thing because it protects investors, makes sure that there's proper disclosure, and you know, there's a lot more responsibility for the advisor to sort of own up to be accountable for what they're doing.
Jeff, did this come out in some parts because of the financial crisis of 2008? We see people were losing a lot of money, but also they're suddenly realizing, wow, look at all the fees I'm paying.
I would be guessing a bit, but I would suggest that its roots are started there. That certainly brought it to the forefront, and you know, people started to look at everything, and the UK and Australia were much quicker at the draw on this and changed their whole systems dramatically. Here in Canada, we've phased it in, and you know, as Dave talked about, over time, the initial phase was about a disclosure package when you opened an account, and it kind of outlined the fees and the things you paid in a general way. Next, they came out with a verbal, which, you know, if you made a trade or any of those types of things, you were told how much it would cost. And then this July, right now, they've come out with probably the biggest reform of the 3, and it is kind of revolved around disclosure on statements.
David, in layman's terms, what are we talking about here? Are people paying fees upon fees? Is that it? I guess is it trailing fees in mutual funds that maybe are hidden?
You know what, I think that, well, there's 2 issues, okay? So one is better reporting in terms of returns, and so that's one consideration that, you know, they want to make sure that returns are dealt with in a much clearer basis. So I'd say, you know, starting with that, it's really to make sure that you've got your total gains and losses reported in dollar terms, which you clearly understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second...
And percentage terms about how much you've made each year?
That's right. And a lot of firms have already been doing that all the way along. But the second component, in terms of fees, you know, they want to make sure that people understand clearly, you know, what fees they are paying for what they're doing. So a good example of this is, it's not going to tell you what the advisor is actually being compensated. However, what it does tell you is it tells you in dollar terms, you know, if they've got a mutual fund, what trailing commission is paid to the firm. And then the advisor's compensation is you know, whatever compensation is related to that.
So it's what you've paid out in an actual fee to manage that money, or have them manage your money.
That's right. Now, one of the flaws, and I think I gave you this analogy earlier, is that if you went in and got your vehicle fixed, you know, it would be like saying, okay, we're going to disclose what you're paying for labor, but the parts side of it, we don't in the overall fee, right? So, I mean, you wouldn't do that in a dealership. You get, you know, you get all that.
It'd be all logged, yeah.
Now they have,
Go ahead.
They have talked that there will be additional phases to this, and one of the things that they're looking at disclosing in greater detail is the parts. The cost to manage it, the MERs, the things that the investment fund manager, and I know we're circling on funds. I mean, it's all investments right now, at least in terms of whether you're buying stock but that's
mutual funds tend to have the highest fees, right? The highest MERs.
Well, they tend to have an embedded fee that is constant for the management, where if you're on a commission basis, it's only per transaction, or if you're on a fee basis like we are, you're billed quarterly, so it's a different process.
So the things that have to be disclosed are, you know, trailing commissions from mutual fund companies that get paid to the firm, all right? Annualized fees, you know, fee-based charges. So those typically have always been disclosed when you go through it. commissions for the purchase of a mutual fund on a transaction basis, and then any administration or trustee fees.
And on the purchase side, the deferred sales charges.
That's correct, yeah.
Now, would we see, guys, a shift? Maybe we've already seen a shift per se from mutual funds to ETFs because of the lower fees. Do you think you might see more of that because of this?
Well, I think you may. I'd be guessing. So, any research I've done on this, the average of a mutual fund is roughly 0.44, or sorry, of an ETF is 0.44%. Yeah. So that, to me, would represent the cost of, traditional just investment only management. And, whenever we've looked at the wholesale cost of a mutual fund, they typically run around 1% if you get an F series, somewhere in that range. It's and so that tells me that the active portion is roughly 0.5%. So it depends on what you value. I mean, there's 2,000 choices of ETFs out there. So you can go for a low-cost strategy, but you still have to make decisions on what you're going to include. I mean, you could get something low cost, but it's not necessarily maybe going to give you a sense of comfort on, when the market's going down.
Yeah. And Jeff, one of the biggest advantages I think from what I read in the Saturday Globe was the clarity on the statement, which can be a little confusing sometimes when you get them now. You're not quite sure, well, how much have I made since I bought the thing, or how much the percentage, that kind of thing. What will these new statements show people?
Well, historically, they didn't really show you anything. You kind of looked at the total and looked at what you thought you put in and figured out what your returns were if you paid a commission. Now, over and above, there'll be an annual fee total on your statement, which once a year is going to tell you the total cumulative, but also per transaction. So if you buy mutual funds on a deferred basis, it's going to show that compensation. The other thing they're adding to is performance. So it's going to show what your performance is, and is it both percentage and dollar terms, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So to his point though, they also show dollars in, dollars out, right? So any money you withdraw, and so when we take a look at the calculation of returns, it's on a money weighted basis, okay, versus a time weighted basis. So on a money weighted basis, that means it considers the timing of any money that's deposited or withdrawn from the portfolio, and that can be slightly different than time weighted, which is typically, if you're looking at measuring yourself against a benchmark, an index gives you a time weighted rate of return.
Okay. And you guys overall support this legislation, right? It's
Absolutely.
Good for your industry.
I think it's great. It's really it's designed to protect investors, and we've got I think a fiduciary duty. Advisors, as financial advisors, where we've got to take their interests, first. And so it's there's a number of different things. There's 10 things that I've listed out that I think, after doing my research, that I think are important. It's a requirement to deal fairly and honestly and in good faith with clients, and it improves to a higher standard, takes things to another standard. Proper disclosure and handling of conflicts of interest, suitability. Tightens up compliance, all those sorts of things. So,
if looking for any more information, Jeff, can people go to your website, for example?
Absolutely. Yourlifeyourplan.ca.